Hello again, everybody, and welcome inside the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show. I am George the Howitzer Gerbo.
And I am Mike, the Buzzsaw Asti.
Sports Talk back with you as we wind our way through the month of September. Everything heating up. College football's heating up. NFL's heating up. We got hockey training camps.
Yeah.
We got basketball soon coming together in the NBA. Baseball pennant races getting more and more interesting by the day, which they weren't. Now they kind of are, especially in the American League. So
sure.
We'll see how those all go. Mike the Buzzsaw Asti, calmer than usual this day, this season, but it will ramp up for him at some point, I believe.
Well, we're getting into ramp up portion of the calendar year. We're getting to where every sport converges and it allows for the conversation to ramp up. So we are getting into the best part of the sports calendar here in the fall. As much as I want to hang on to the summer weather, I'm okay with going to the fall because of the sports calendar. And I can't complain much. I'm in a good day. I'm in a good mood today. Had some grocery store sushi for lunch.
Okay.
Got to cover maybe the best college football game of the weekend last weekend in West Virginia's win in the backyard brawl. George got to cover another exhibition game, basically, early in Maryland season. Have my 4-month-old daughter who's now smiling and she laughs and I make her laugh. So I'm funny to her. So that's fantastic. So it's all coming up, Mike, the Buzzsaw Asti, right now. And we are about to get into a really rockin' portion of the sports calendar. There's something for everybody now. And so far, the weather has not yet bothered me. So I'm in a good mood, but yes, I will eventually, at some point here, I will rant a time or two. You can hear it here on the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show.
Yes. And a reminder to hear and find those rants wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Howitzer in your favorite podcast app. That includes Apple, TuneIn, Spotify, and more. Just search Howitzer in those apps to find us. Also, a shout out to the Hyphen Podcast Group and Kellen B. Conley, whose music you hear right here each and every time on the HBS, hyphenpodcastgroup.com, and on socials.
You can find us on social at Howitzer Buzzsaw for the show handle, at Gerbo3, at Mike Asti 11. And as we continue to be everywhere, if you still can't find us, you are not trying hard enough, and there's a lot to look for again right now, a lot to talk about in the sports world, but it's been a while, I feel like, George, since we've actually talked baseball. You mentioned the pennant races, but what everybody is talking about is the MVP races, so we have a lot to discuss here. We are now going to lean into a mostly baseball talk edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show. There's been a lot of football recently. Yeah. Football's in the air, but baseball's hanging on, still kind of in the air as well. In the conversation.
It's been a fun baseball season as we wind our way through September. The Seattle Mariners, right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Fringe wild card team for a long time. And then here in the last few weeks, they have kicked it up a notch, gone on a tear, and they are now in contention with the Houston Astros for the American League West.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, George predicted they would eventually get going and potentially be a dark horse team in the AL. And 4 years later, George is correct. Yeah. I think there might be a little bit of a statute of limitations on the pick, but it is now eventually started to come to fruition.
And after they've, some significant enough turnover, but they made some good deadline acquisitions. Josh Naylor came over at the deadline for them. So, but being led and being driven by their standout catcher, Cal Raleigh, the switch hitting phenom who won the home run derby this year for people that forget, and now officially is past Mickey Mantle, the most home runs by a switch hitter in a season all time in baseball history. The driving force in the Pacific Northwest for the Mariners as they continue to chase that playoff spot division title in the West. The other side of the country in New York, you have the Yankees, who are holding on to the top wild card spot in the American League. Toronto right now leading that division, which kind of came out of nowhere for some people, especially considering the moves the Blue Jays made over the course of the winter. Sure. And not people expected to see where they're at, but they are there, and they're got a loading up on old starting pitching when you guys got guys like Max Scherzer and they traded for Shane Bieber in the
going all in. Really,
the
the first
deadline,
time
so
in a while a Blue Jays team is going fully all in. They've spent money before and had it not work out, but they are fully going all in right now.
Their best effort since 16, those Jose Bautista years when they were in the LCS that year and lost to Cleveland.
Sure.
And just behind them, the Yankees. And so the Yankees, once again, being led by Aaron Judge, fits and starts early in the Yankee season. But again, this is a team that made it to the World Series last year. But
you wouldn't know if you talked to their fans.
You wouldn't know it if you talked to any these Yankee
or hear
fans.
Any coverage of from New York media or even nationally. You would think they've been in last place for a decade. But
Yankee and Met fans are both insufferable, but for different reasons. Yankee fans are insufferable because again, they made the World Series last year.
Correct.
And yet still all fire Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge makes all these bad mistakes, blah, blah, blah. The Mets willing to spend money. Steve Cohen willing to spend money, out
and Yankees lost to a team that actually outspends them. The Dodgers in this era actually spend more, and that is who beat them. So it's not like they lost to a team that they spend more than.
Yeah.
That's an important note here because the Yankees, the conversation's always about money.
Yeah. And the Dodgers trying to match, or the Mets trying to match the Dodgers in spending with what Steve Cohen's doing. And then they start out with a sluggish thing. And now here they are, and they've just kind of been holding on to that last wild card spot and just still hanging in there in a year that Atlanta has taken a step back, and rumblings that Brian Snitker, their manager, his last season, they're managing the Braves potentially after this season.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia still doing Philadelphia things, but then the Mets are right there in the wild card race and will probably end, knock on wood for Mets fans, probably end up winning it. They've got the Diamondbacks and the Reds just on their tails, but with enough distance right now with the final couple weeks of the season here. But New York fans, insufferable, multiple reasons. And the bright spot, if you're a Yankees fan, because Yankees fans love complaining about pitching, but you can't complain about the hitting, and you can't complain about Aaron Judge, who pretty much, Mike, leads the American League in every statistical category. He's
50, except for home runs.
That's why I said pretty much every.
Ironically enough, except for home runs.
Ironically. 329, 453, 679 slash line. That's AL leading. 127 runs, 114 walks, 344 total bases, OPS plus a 211 are all leading the American League. Baseball research or Baseball Reference WAR, B-WAR, F-WAR, Fanatics, Fangraphs WAR, both 9, 8.6 respectively. Those are AL League leading. Cal Raleigh just behind, Judge 6.7, 8.4 in those categories for people that track the advanced statistics and the analytics portion of the program. And as Mike mentions, Cal Raleigh, 56 home runs, 118 RBIs leads the American League. Aaron Judge, 48 and 103. So we've actually got a close, true slugger American League MVP race, Mike, because you'll get a lot of these times people want to throw,
I think the last time, and it wasn't as much of a true slugger because it was more offense versus pure overall great player, but it was Trout versus Cabrera.
Yeah.
Because Trout at the time was the best player in baseball for years on end and was a way better defensive player and
Cabrera
doing a little bit around the bases and still enough offense, but Cabrera won the Triple Crown. So that was a rare instance in this generation that an historic season that was mostly built off the old counting numbers beat out an analytical season, because we have moved into a period of evaluation that people that have the great slash lines, the wins above replacement, especially when they agree, because that's not always the case, usually then get the bump. We even saw that when Felix Hernandez won a Cy Young Award over CC Sabathia, despite CC winning 20 games and Felix Hernandez won 13, but he had all the other analytic numbers. He was so dominant, and he deserved it. And it's nice we're kind of getting to that point, but Cabrera did take that over Trout not too long ago. So we still have some instances of the old school numbers working for you, especially when it's an historic season and you get people sitting there saying, I'd like to do it, but Triple Crown or the single season home run record for a switch hitter, as well as for a catcher, as well as the franchise record. And we're not even done. He can get over 60. That stops people in their tracks too. So this probably is that first true MVP debate, at least in the AL since Trout versus
Mhm.
Cabrera. But ironically enough, this is probably the first year I can remember that we have a legit MVP debate in both leagues
Both leagues, yeah.
simultaneously,
Mhm.
and they both are very centered around old school counting numbers versus historic seasons, because we'll get to the NL side later. But Schwarber and Ohtani is somebody that you got to kind of dig deep, but once you dig deep, he ends up as arguably the greatest player ever, and Schwarber has the slugging numbers. So we have both simultaneously, but Judge versus Raleigh is one that, depending on how it goes, it may make Yankee fans very upset again. We will see how that finishes out.
And to frame your context framing there, as you mentioned, Miguel Cabrera received 22 of the 28 first place votes back in 2012 in that race against Trout.
And I thought Trout should have won that, by the way. I know Cabrera got Triple Crown, but the man couldn't barely field a ball. That was the issue that season, but he did win it.
Yeah. And the Tigers stalking him at first base / designated hitter a lot. Right. Yeah, he was.
And that was
late.
Peak Mike Trout doing it all. Like, he literally was better than, he pretty much was Griffey, but better than that, if you want to compare. And it still went to Cabrera. Yeah.
And when Otani was teammates with Trout in the Angels, him and Judge, a few years ago, were in the MVP race against each other. And
Judge, that was one too. That was a debate too. That's
Judge took that one, 28 of 30 first place votes. So only one
on a much better team, though. That was part of it, that Ohtani kind of got hurt by the Angels never contending, but he did win awards.
Only one tie ever in MVP voting history in either league. 1979, Keith Hernandez and the Mets, Willie Stargell, the Pirates tied and split the award. That year, the Pirates in 79 won the World Series, of course, led by Stargell, the We Are Family Pirates. Joe DiMaggio beat Ted Williams by 1 point in 1947 after players had returned from World War II. A lot of those guys, including both of them, served in the war. So
might have been the first Trout versus Cabrera. I mean, that was player versus hitter. That was the quintessential player versus hitter debate. Way back. Yeah, I remember my grandfather always bringing that up, that he always was a DiMaggio guy, and most of the country loved Ted Williams and would rank him higher, but he couldn't field worth a lick was the issue there, even if his batting average was usually better.
DiMaggio carrying the Italian-American vote in a lot of necks of the woods, including ours.
My grandfather was very much Italian, so I think he felt kind of pigeonholed into having to be a DiMaggio guy, but was a DiMaggio guy nonetheless. But yeah, overall player versus hitter, those have kind of been the debates throughout history. Where do you go? And obviously Ohtani's a different animal and a unicorn, but this one is even different than those, because those were player versus hitter. This one is not as much player versus hitter as it's hitter versus hitter, but hitter who Judge would win this going away in any other year. But because there's historic accomplishments attached to Cal Raleigh, and he's just such a fun-loving guy and the big dumper and all of that, there are people that are looking to likely throw votes his way. But we'll get into it here. You can almost make an argument that this maybe shouldn't be as much of a debate as it is, because if you go back through baseball history, George, as you just brought up some of the close races, I think what people don't get, breaking records or setting history has actually not guaranteed you an MVP award throughout the history of the sport. I mean, when McGwire broke the single season home run record, he was not MVP, and that was before anybody was really against it because of steroids. He hit the 70, but Sosa had more RBI, his team was better, more overall hits, his batting average better, and they gave it to him, and he won the MVP. Even if you go to that 30 for 30 documentary, it closes with Sosa literally saying, I ended up behind all these guys, and then he winked, I got the MVP. So that's an example where breaking a record at the time, which was one of the most hallowed records before it kind of got sullied, didn't even get it. And obviously there was media attention there. Nobody can say there wasn't media attention on McGwire. He didn't win the MVP, though. So does history repeat itself? It's arguably an odd situation that the New York Yankee is actually getting less buzz nationally, but arguably the slash lines are better, but the splashy home runs are on the other guy in Cal Raleigh.
And as we've had this, conversation over the years, obviously baseball values these things to a much higher degree than football or basketball does. Hockey does to some extent, but hockey's got, a player's MVP and then as voted on by the media MVP, the Hart Trophy. in base, and so I say that to say that, you know, there's no, per the BWAA, Baseball Writers Association of America, there is no actual clear-cut definition on how you want to, how people can choose to vote actual value of a player to his team. To your point, and this is where, and I finally, it seemed like the overwhelming institutional, when I say institutional, I mean like the baseball media sector of things that I watch and hear and read, was, oh, Judge, yeah, Cal's got the home runs and the RBI, but, Judge leads in all the metrics. And if I'm just looking at metrics, blah, 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 it's that. And then I'm finally starting to hear, I heard Mike Lowell the other day, former third baseman with the Marlins, who's on TV now. It's like, no, it's Cal, like Cal Raleigh is my guy for this.
They're getting mesmerized by the long ball. Chicks take the long ball, and so do analysts.
It's so, and admittedly, like that's where I, like, if I was a voter, like that's where I would be. It's like, dude, historically no precedent for this, comes out, he's got a goofy nickname, Big Dumper, we're like, oh, and then he starts mashing, and then it's like, okay, and then he goes in the home run derby and he mashes, and he doesn't fall off after the home run derby, like has happened periodically in the course of the past 20 years.
His pace has dissipated a little bit, especially if he doesn't get over 60. But still,
pace is that he
he had 39 at that time.
He was on pace to break Judge's American League, which Judge now holds the American League record. There was much ballyhooed that the Yankees put together.
A little asterisk they some claim is the actual single season record without steroids. But that's not even going to be a thing now. He's far from that pace now.
If he got to 60, that would be cool. He's not going to get to like 63 or 64 at this point, unless he does a Schwarber thing. We'll get to him later, where you hit 4.
Well, Dumper, he hit 2 to get the switch hitter mark, and then tie Griffey for the Mariners. So I don't want to discount him here.
No, but like I'm just, if the Yankees and again, people who evaluate it, whatever, I'm telling the way I would evaluate it, and Aaron Judge, historically all-time great player, has won the MVP, will win more MVPs. If Aaron Judge wasn't in that Yankee lineup this year, the Yankees are still a playoff team, even with all their warts and even with all their faults. He's a key part of that offense and is an engine for that offense, but with everybody else that they got, and can make it work there. If you remove Judge, that can
argue against him having any MVPs, though, because that's the case every year.
But if Raleigh, if the Seattle Mariners don't have Raleigh, they're in 4th place or worse in that division. That's just the way I see it. And it's no slight to the Mariners, but the Mariners remind me a lot of the Guardians, which are, of course, my team, and they clashed a lot in those 90s years with the superstars, with Randy Johnson and Griffey and Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner against the Tomies and the Ramirezes of the Indians, then Indians. And they've got to get everything cobbled together and working in the right way for them to get to the playoffs. It's not 2001 where they can win 119 games and then end up losing in the first round of the division series, like they did. So if they don't have that offense, if they don't have a bat, because God bless Julio Rodriguez and some of these other guys in the lineups that are really good. And I mentioned Naylor. They brought in Naylor, who's a home run threat, but not the way Raleigh's been able to do it consistently. Changes the dynamic of how your offense works. In New York, you've got Giancarlo, formerly known as Mike Stanton. You've got other players in that lineup that can help pick up the slack and the power slack. And with the Mariners, when you have Raleigh in there and able to do that pretty much at will, and people aren't really pitching around him like they would Judge in some circumstances, then I think that is more of a difference maker to me and makes him more valuable to the Mariners than Judge would be to the Yankees. So again, close. Yeah. Not really a right or wrong answer, but for my money, I would go with Cal Raleigh.
So the weirdest part about this American League MVP debate for me, I wouldn't have a problem with either guy necessarily winning it. I wouldn't throw a chair if either guy necessarily won it. And I do also get the love affair with Cal Raleigh, because I think part of it is, George, this almost comes off as you and I, any fan out there, getting off their couch, and all of a sudden they're breaking records in Major League Baseball and bashing home runs and winning a home run derby. Because in every interview, he even said when he got over Mickey Mantle and then tied Griffey with the Mariners. His interview after that game, he literally said, I don't belong with those guys. But in terms of the season, he's there. So he's very humble. He's kind of given you that dry sense of humor that even now we're at the end of the year when the numbers are there and he's still telling you, I don't feel comfortable being in this conversation. And it's a flip. This is almost a heel versus face thing in a way. I feel like the country likes Cal Raleigh. If you're not a Yankees or Mariners fan, maybe even voters are going to think this way. Okay, Judge has had it before. They're the Yankees. If Judge ends up with a season, a career-ending injury tomorrow, they're just going to get some other star and he'll clip off MVPs. This is what the Yankees do. And yeah, it's been a while since a championship, but they were just in the World Series. The Mariners have never won a title, one of 5 franchises without a World Series championship. And you have Cal Raleigh, who no one had heard of. Most casual fans probably hadn't heard of before this season. They probably wish he could go ahead and get into the 60s. Probably wish he can go ahead and get more. They probably wish he can go keep on doing this and somehow become this everyman catcher who ends up in Cooperstown in a way. He just is that popular player because it is the Yankee player who normally is just going to be the heel because unless you're a Yankee fan, most people don't like the Yankees. It's a player who's won before, and Judge in interviews, he's confident in himself. He doesn't say I don't belong. He's like, yeah, this is where I am. I'm Aaron Judge, and I'm the best player now, and he's going to be captain for Team USA. He's a confident player, as he should be. But you have a confident player on the Yankees who always win, and they're going to get MVPs, whether it's him or not, in the future, against the franchise that hasn't won a title, that only has a couple MVPs and a Cy Young, Griffey, Ichiro, and then Johnson Cy Youngs, and hasn't fully cashed in, and a player that really wasn't really known and comes off like the everyman. It comes off like a fan doing this and crushing home runs. And then he also is a catcher as well. That, I think, is where you get the dynamic of people almost wanting this to be Cal Raleigh's award. Maybe analysts as well trying to push for him more, and fans trying to just argue for him every day on social media because they're sick of maybe Judge clipping these off, and they want Cal Raleigh. And Jordan, I think part of it also is too, if we would discuss, regardless of this year's winner, who has a likelihood to win an MVP award again, it's Judge hands down. He can win it next year. But people are going to say Cal Raleigh could go from 56 home runs this year to 20 next year, and I don't think anyone will be surprised. It seems like an anomaly year.
Yeah.
So that is potentially the Cal Raleigh argument, in addition to setting the records, all the home runs, and doing it as a catcher. So he's commanding the starting rotation. He's commanding the pitching staff as well. He's doing it more than just as a hitter, and he's also getting enough at bats to do this because normally the reason why catchers haven't had a 50 home run season prior to him is because they usually don't play on Sundays. They usually don't play the second day of doubleheaders. They usually don't get even 400 bats in a year, whereas most outfield sluggers get 500 to 600 if they stay healthy. That's a big difference. But Raleigh's getting enough to do enough, and he is so well liked and so popular, the country's almost forcing this upon him. However, to play devil's advocate here, if I had a vote, even though I wouldn't be mad with either result, and I do get why the country wants Cal Raleigh to get this award, if I had a vote, I would still lean Judge. And the issue is, I get Cal Raleigh is setting records and has a single season record for a switch hitter and the Mariners and first 50 home run catching season in the history of the game. I get all of that. However, Aaron Judge has a slash line that is actually even more impressive and better than his MVP seasons. Aaron Judge is giving you an on-base percentage of .453, a slug of .676, an OPS of 1.129. And George, I saw a tweet the other day that really leans me to want to vote for Judge if I had a vote here, because it literally read, if you take 180 points away from Aaron Judge's OPS, he's Cal Raleigh. If you take 180 away from Cal Raleigh, he's barely an average player. That shows you the difference, because the issue here is, and maybe the easy way to explain the analytic versus just the counting numbers or the way we used to evaluate in past generations, the goal of a hitter when you get up to bat is to either get on base or send somebody around. Aaron Judge is better than Cal Raleigh at getting on base and or sending somebody around. He can get himself on base with a better efficiency. He can get somebody else move from first to second to third, whatever. He can get somebody around the bases. Now, Cal Raleigh can get him around quicker if they're not solo home runs. Granted, a lot of them have been this year, by the way. But if he can get 2-run, 3-run shots that he's hit some of. But Aaron Judge, it's not like Aaron Judge has 20 home runs and Cal Raleigh got 56. They are still very close. Aaron Judge is also going to surpass 50 home runs this season. And then when you look at all of the rest, because George, the problem with me is, and I understand batting average is kind of a stat of the past, but if you want to lean Cal Raleigh, you're looking at stats of the past, the old counting numbers. He's hitting 247. Aaron Judge is currently hitting 328. It's not like he's hitting 302, 298, 304. It's 328 versus 247. And yes, if you're a catcher, like my grandfather always would tell me, well, if you're a catcher, you only got to hit 250 if you can hit home runs. If you're a shortstop, you only have to hit 250 if you can get a few singles. You don't even need to ever hit a home run. If you're an outfielder, you got to hit 300 and got to match 35, etc. That's kind of an old school thinking. But if you want to use an old school thinking for this debate, and I get Cal Raleigh, okay, you're a catcher. Hitting 250 with home runs is totally fine for that old school thinking. But it's still player versus player. You're still comparing 247 to 328 and then 127 runs, 104 RBI. Aaron Judge, George, people don't give him credit. He has 12 stolen bases. I mean, this is not somebody who's just hitting and that's all he's doing. He's a fine outfielder as well. And when you mention wins above replacement, no matter which one you want to look at or use, Aaron Judge is a full 2 points ahead of Cal Raleigh, George. If you use that as an indicator of how much they help a team win, he is 8.7, Cal Raleigh 6.7. And this is also part of, which is an aside here, but even surpassing the single season record for the Mariners, and as we're recording this, he's tied with Griffey at 56, but he's going to surpass that. That I don't even think this is a better year than Griffey's year in 97 or 98. And maybe I'm biased because I grew up a Griffey fan, but if you look at the home runs being equal, Griffey's batting average was better, his runs were better, his RBIs were better, his on base was better, his slug was better, his OPS was better. He basically had an Aaron Judge-like year versus what Cal Raleigh is doing now. His wins above replacement, one of those years was over 9. So even better than what Aaron Judge is doing now. And even the lesser of the two was still better than current Cal Raleigh 6.7. Cal Raleigh does have the at-bats at 562 as we're speaking. It's not like he's only giving you what normally a catcher would have of 450 at a max. So as you said, they're giving him the at-bats. They're giving him the time to compare himself numbers to numbers for an MVP with Aaron Judge, an outfielder. And yet, despite more home runs, he's coming up short in every slash line. And really the goal of getting up there, of either getting yourself on, driving somebody else in, moving something around, all of that edges out Aaron Judge. And to me, and I get Aaron Judge has won this award before and probably will win it again and will vie for it every year. He actually has 2 MVPs right now, probably will retire with 5 or 6 or whatever. I mean, that he's in it every year. He's on that pace. He's also won a Rookie of the Year. But I've always had the mentality too that whoever deserves it, deserves it. So if Aaron Judge deserves the MVP award for 6 straight years, then give him to him for 6 straight years. This is not like, people don't get for another history lesson. Oh, why did Babe Ruth only have 3 MVPs? Because back then there actually was a rule for the baseball writers that they did not want a guy to get it back-to-back years. Babe Ruth led the league for 10 years in a row, but they wouldn't give it to him back-to-back years. He should have probably 9 MVPs. That's dumb to me. If Aaron Judge deserves it every year, give it to him every year. And this year, he achieves the goal more often. His slash line numbers, give it to him for me. His average, even for an old school stat, is way better than Cal Raleigh's. He's close in home runs, RBI, runs scored, hits. He's close. He's right there, either ahead or right below. He's right there with Cal Raleigh and everything else. So if I had a vote, I'd go Aaron Judge. I get why people love Cal Raleigh so much, but if Cal Raleigh had a few less home runs, I guess that's how I'll pivot. If you want to go Cal Raleigh right now because of the history that involves his season, and I get that would be the argument. If Cal Raleigh had fewer home runs than Aaron Judge, but Aaron Judge had every other category, all the slash line numbers, and Kyle Raleigh just had a 50 home run season for a catcher, but fewer than Aaron Judge, would you then feel differently, or do you want to lean toward the single season record? Because everything else besides the home run number really points to Aaron Judge. And again, popularity also points to Kyle Raleigh.
And if you are picking, to your point, the best player, if the award is who was the best player,
Sure.
Aaron Judge is the best player arguably in all of baseball this season, even more so than Ohtani with the numbers that you
could argue that
referenced. And it's funny because I kind of draw a parallel to what we saw in basketball this year, where entering, the MVP award this past season, you had Nikola Jokic, who
he's like the Aaron Judge of this. You could argue
the last
every year, and he's
and there was just kind of this.
Dominant.
It just felt like it's nothing against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they won the title, but just it kind of felt like, hey, let's go ahead and give it to Shai because this, Jokic will be around for a while, and like Oklahoma's having the
and he's won enough of them for history, etc.
Yeah,
whereas if Shai doesn't get it this year, when is he? He's a great player, but this is the year to give it to him.
So in that example,
right.
in the NBA, voters are a little more laissez-faire with their votes.
Yeah.
SGA won it, and then eventually Oklahoma City goes on to win the title. So it just kind of puts a nice bow on everything there. Whereas Jokic probably was, again, the best player in the league. If the award is who's the best player in the league, it was probably Jokic again,
Yeah, I mean, they fired their coach and he's still vying for the MVP at the end of the year.
Yes,
yeah, no, you could argue that, although if you really want to split hairs, you could argue that he's the most dominant player on an every year basis, which is how he gets awards. But in terms of athleticism, what he can actually do with it, you could argue that maybe he's not the quote unquote best.
Sure.
Like if we're gonna pick up a team outside someone's backyard and play 5-on-5, you might draft Shai ahead of Jokic for an hour playing outside. But if you're going to play a full season, then Joker's the most dominant. So you could say, is Aaron Judge the best? Is he the most dominant? But in the comparison, then Kyle Raleigh certainly would be the SGA. Mm-hmm. It's similar, and that did go. If you're going to lean towards where is our modern day voting going, then maybe that would benefit Kyle Raleigh here, and they're not the same voters, of course, but maybe that would lean him finally getting this. The weirdest thing, George, I would vote Aaron Judge. I wouldn't really get mad if Kyle Raleigh won it. I do get the argument for him. However, you bring up that example in the NBA, which makes a lot of sense here. It almost seems like if you hear from people that have votes, from the public conversation, certainly to the national media, it almost feels like the prediction is the Judge is still going to win this, which means that people in the national media and the voters and the baseball writers are still leaning Judge.
Yes.
And leaning to the dominant, the better player, etc., the slash line numbers. Whereas in the NBA, that was different. That's just interesting, I guess. It seems like if I had to bet money, the Judge is going to win this award, regardless of what people would maybe want to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment, though the odds are closer there than they are in the National League, where Shohei Ohtani, an overwhelming current still 5-figure favorite to win the NL MVP. And I get the sense that you think it might be a closer race than that, or at least that Kyle Schwarber, who really has had an excellent season, among kind of an excellent run he's been on between the Cubs, the years he was with the Nats before the Nats traded him. He was good in Washington, and he's taken that to even, more stratospheric heights this season in the way he's been able to hit the ball, but also a team that had a lot of, leaders already, or leadership on it. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and here comes Schwarber and inserts himself in there, and has elevated their level to, again, a World Series favorite, but perhaps a greater World Series favorite than they were even in these previous seasons. So your case for Schwarber, who...
So you're asking me to make a case for Schwarber or to give you my pick?
make a case for Schwarber because the
that may
the
not be the
inertia,
same thing, by the way.
the inertia is Ohtani again.
See,
50,
I will make a case for Schwarber just for
50,
the sake
51,
of the show. But
50, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to quickly add that you can make an argument if you want to lean to the slash numbers and you want to lean to analytics and you want to go to wins above replacement. You could actually argue, George, this is not as much of a debate as Judge versus Raleigh, because I do want to quickly throw out there, and I will make a case for Schwarber. Schwarber's wins above replacement this year is only at 4.8. That is pretty low for somebody that would end up winning an MVP award. Ohtani's is at 7. And I know that equates, especially Baseball Reference, which is where I admittedly do lean more, that equates to what he does on the mound as well. But to be fair, George, people want to eliminate that. I think that's unfair to eliminate. He's out there doing it. It's a craft that he is partaking in. He is taxing his body more. And there's no rule to say Kyle Schwarber, Aaron Judge, Kyle Raleigh can't go ahead and be great pitchers and all of a sudden start throwing the baseball and impress somebody, and now you can go on the mound as well. Another team would do this with somebody else if they could, and they would get then paid a lot more money. Nobody else can do it. Nobody else has perfected doing it. And nobody else has done what Otani has done as a hitter and pitcher together in the same year ever. I want to let that simmer. Ever. Not Babe Ruth, but ever. Babe Ruth didn't have 50 home runs and 50 strikeouts in the same year. Babe Ruth was a great pitcher that then was traded and then became a great hitter and kind of let pitching go. Ohtani's doing this simultaneously. So I could argue the debate is not as close in the National League, although I think to what would closen it up is what you were arguing, which is what I guess what the argument for Schwarber would be of value to the team. Are we arguing best player or are we arguing value to the team?
Schwarber, 53 home runs. Schwarber leads best Ohtani in home runs and RBI, 53 to 51, 128 to 95. Ohtani's got the better OPS, 1,012 to Schwarber's 937. Ohtani's batting average 40 points higher than Schwarber's, 283 to 243. On base percentage and slugging, both higher for Ohtani to Schwarber. So it's basically, are we weighting the overall category?
If we get 2 MVP awards hit in the 240s, my grandfather might roll over right now. In the same year, that would be I look that up if that's ever happened again. I feel like that's never happened before. But
Ohtani, they've walked essentially the same amount, just one different there, and then Ohtani has struck out 6 times less, so about the same there. But overall, the overall numbers lean, and including the WAR that you mentioned, lean Ohtani. The power numbers lean Schwarber, and then also, if you're a voter, which presumably you would do this, as you mentioned, you take into consideration the fact that
you got to.
He didn't start, and he was injured and didn't start did all the stuff he did last year without pitching because he had the surgery, but yet still can hit, which is just like human body. It's amazing. Yeah. And then now for him to come back and work his way, he's not what he was 2 seasons ago when he kind of debuted with the Dodgers and came on the scene that way with what he was doing pitching, but he is working his way back to the level of excellence that he had as a pitcher 2 seasons ago. And now in this season, he's working his way there after the injury. So it is pretty much his to lose. But yeah, can you get somebody that would make a case for Schwarber, who's having the best year of his career on that team? But that team's, and so this is kind of like the antithetical of the Seattle portion, Mike, where that team's a really good team.
It's kind of a mix of what we were talking about before, right?
Yeah, Harrison Bader, Johan Duran, Turner I mentioned, Bryce Harper I mentioned, like
not
that.
The Dodgers
if the Dodgers were not in their way, that's the favorite for the pennant. It's these 2 teams, the Dodgers and the Phillies, just played each other in a series too, in Chavez Ravine. So
and the difference here is that in the American League with Raleigh versus Judge, you have a player that's won the MVP multiple times before on an historic franchise that pretty much everybody hates outside of Yankee fans, versus a guy with a franchise that still hasn't fully broken through, as an expansion franchise that's been around a while, that has had great players but not won a title, and a player that may never be an all-star again, may never do this again, and it's more of the everyman. So that's kind of a heel and face. That's why the country loves Raleigh so much, even though, again, I would vote Judge in the slash numbers and him being a better player and doing more, say he should win it, but maybe the popularity will give it to Raleigh. But in the National League, you have two players on two historic franchises that are in two markets that, George, if you don't live in Philly or don't live in LA, most of the rest of the country are annoyed with people that live in LA or live in Philly. Maybe you want to visit LA because the warmth and the sunshine in Hollywood, but people that live there, you're kind of annoyed with the arrogance. People in Philly, you're kind of annoyed with the arrogance and that mentality. So I don't think anyone out there is going to have their heart bleed for a Dodger or a Philly. It's not the same as Cal Raleigh with the Mariners. And even to go to, if you want to argue the Cal Raleigh argument, even if you concede all the stats besides home runs, as you were doing, you were conceding most of it, but saying value to the team. You take him away, you don't win. You take Judge away, you do win. So it gets into, are we arguing better player or arguing more value? And to be fair, even though we pretty much give the award to the best player across sports, that the award actually is named most valuable. It is not named most outstanding. Maybe the compromise is we just get a valuable MVP and have a most outstanding as well, which was brought up during Trout Cabrera, which we never did. But maybe we do that. But in the National League, Schwarber, if you take him away from the Phillies, they're probably still good. They're probably still a playoff team. You could argue he's not even the best player on the team, in Bryce Harper being that best player. He obviously got hurt a lot this year, but just player to player going into the year, Bryce Harper is the best player on the Phillies. He's been an MVP before. And with the Dodgers, Ohtani's the best player. But, George, they're so loaded, as they always are. They won the World Series last year with basically him hurt in the postseason. They won it anyway. If you take him off the team this year, maybe they don't repeat as champion, but they're still going to be a playoff team. They're still going to be very, very good. And they would have enough money to buy somebody else if need be. So it's not like either one of these two teams you can't really use. This is why I said the debate I don't think is as sound. You cannot use what your argument was of value over best in this. Both of these two teams are stacked. If you take the player away, they're probably still both a playoff team, right?
Yes.
Okay. So again, to tip my hand, which I've already kind of gave away, I do think Ohtani I would vote for him and probably will win this again. And he's won it before. It's similar to, I'd be fine with everyone getting it every year if they deserve it. If Ohtani deserves it every year, give it to him every year. People don't want that, but that's the reality. But the argument for Schwarber would be that because Harper was hurt a lot this year, that he is more important to his team. The argument for Schwarber would be that a lot of his home runs have been in really, really big moments to catapult his team to now being a legit National League pennant contender again. The argument for Schwarber would be that while he also has designated hitter time, Ohtani is far from some gold glove gazelle out there defensively. He can pitch, but you're looking at DH or pitching. It's not like you're going to put Ohtani at first base or the outfield and intermingle him amongst the defensive players and say he's going to be a gold glover that way. You're looking at Ohtani as a pure hitter, as a hitter, and what he can do on the mound as a pitcher in comparison to Schwarber, who does play a little bit in the field at left field, and then also mostly a designated hitter. And his average is lower, but it's not like the difference of, as I brought up, Cal Raleigh hitting 247 and Aaron Judge hitting 328. That's not close. 280 some and 240 some. It's still far. 280 is obviously way better, but it's not like Ohtani's hitting 330 plus. The argument against Ohtani, George, that some people have, which is why they don't like him in the GOAT debate, even this early in his career, is while people catapult him because he's doing it on the mound and as a hitter, he's doing it both. Obviously, Barry Bonds never pitched. Like, it's hard to compare when you see what he does as a pitcher as well. But his hitting is also not close to the level of Aaron Judge or the Hall of Famers that we're talking about. It's good. If he was never a pitcher, he would still probably be a Hall of Famer. But if he was not pitching at all, I don't think he'd be in anybody's GOAT debate. He'd have less MVPs. And he might finish with 500 home runs and be kind of he wouldn't be a top 25 all-time player if there was no pitching. But the pitching's there. So we're living in reality. The pitching is there. We can't say it's not. That argument does annoy me when people say, well, if you take away the pitching, why would I take away the pitching? Why am I taking away the pitching? The pitching is there. He's not doing it for fun.
I've seen it with my eyes. I can't take it away.
I'm not taking it away. That is the worst argument around. But the argument for Schwarber would have to be value to the team, even though they both have stacked rosters. Harper was hurt a lot this year. Maybe a belief in the Phillies, clutch home runs. The other numbers aren't as far away as they are with Judge and Raleigh. But again, I would lean Ohtani here. It sounds boring, and maybe I'm giving you the boring analysis and why I'm the heel of the show here. I would go Judge and Ohtani again, and if Judge and Ohtani do this again next year, then I would go Judge and Ohtani again. And if they do it 2 years from now, then I would go Judge and Ohtani again. And the only way I wouldn't be giving it to Judge and Ohtani is if Judge stops putting up historic slash lines and Ohtani basically stops being a great hitter who also freaking pitches. But George, if you want to talk about, if you want to cling to history for Kyle Raleigh and say that his year is more historic because he's a catcher and what he's doing as a catcher, and Judge, even though he has better numbers, the history's on Raleigh's side. The history is then on Ohtani's side in the NL. He's the very first player ever to have 50 strikeouts as a pitcher and a 50 home run year as a hitter. People think this is made up because it's never been done before. That's why it's made up. So the history is on Ohtani's side even there. That would lead me to vote Ohtani.
Pretty simple.
Can you argue then Schwarber?
No, I saw some chatter about
I think if you want to go analytic, this is even further away than the other debate. I mean, 4.8 WAR is low for 40, the MVP.
40 point difference in the I'm old school, as you probably can tell here. 40-point difference in the average.
That is a big deal.
240 to 280 is significant in my opinion.
So then why is that not significant in the American League? Just on your opinion of evaluating, you said the average is a big deal. The average in the American League is a further gap than even in the National League. 328 versus 247 and 243 versus 280 some. I'm fine with using the average more than maybe some people want to use it.
That's where that's where as you kind of hear my team bias creeps in, where it's the Mariners. And
so if Kyle Raleigh's exact stat line was, say, on the Toronto Blue Jays, this would be Aaron Judge's award.
Yeah. Like I treat the Mariners, and probably I would think most people treat the Mariners as like a small market team. There's really no mid markets anymore in baseball.
That's a whole other rant because they shouldn't be because they have money there. But yes,
I know. No,
I could go into George after the 95.
It's funny when I hear Nationals fans want to say, "Oh, Nationals are a small market team." It's like y'all paid Max Scherzer and Jason Worth hundreds of millions of dollars and won a World Series, and now the Nats are a small market team because their owners are cheap.
Pittsburgh's a small market. Pittsburgh is
definitely a small market. Cleveland. Yeah.
But
wherever the Athletics are playing,
those are small markets whether they win or not.
Yeah,
the Mariners.
I'm with you.
Goes to their history. In '95, they beat the Yankees. And then what did they do in the offseason? They shedded salary and got rid of Tina Martinez. I didn't even understood it when I was a kid. I was like, guys, Starbucks is there. There's money there.
There's no reason
as a media market. Seattle's top 20 media market. I mean, it's not
there's no reason they should not be a powerhouse every year.
Like, so instead of the word small market, I guess they are a
underfunded market.
Yeah, well, I mean, it franchise wise, it's not market. The market got the money.
Yeah,
they operate like a small market, but they
operate like a small market.
They shouldn't, but yeah, maybe.
And they should not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of it then. Yeah,
and I'll throw Gerardo Perdomo for the Diamondbacks. Probably will get some end up being third place in that race as Arizona's kind of come on here late and he's gotten some pop for them. So put his name you might see on that ballot when the whole ballot comes out. It's fun looking at everybody who gets a vote because you put 5 choices down on those.
Do you think it's going to be Judge and Ohtani though? If you had to predict it,
I do. It's funny and we didn't mention, Judge was on the injured list there for a little bit too. So, that kind of when you're out
credit
of the
to
picture,
him then. to credit him then.
Yeah, but that's kind of so that's kind of the weird thing is like Raleigh got a little bit okay. Raleigh's still hitting home runs, but then Judge comes back and he still has these numbers. After missing, can't remember what it was, a week or two, elbow thing he missed with time. So I
understand what you're saying about the Mariners team, and I understand what you're saying that if you take Judge away, it's still valuable, it's a better argument in the American League than it would be in the National League for me. However, another comeback point that I could ask here would be, you mentioned Judge missed some time. If Judge had the lead in home runs, would that change it?
Yeah, because those are the big numbers. If Judge had I know.
See, that bothers me a little bit because that's the goal when you get up to bat is to either get on or send somebody around. That's kind of why I want to vote for Judge, to be honest with you, because we're almost being mesmerized and hypnotized by the home run. Chick digs the long ball, so do analysts. But in all reality, George, the home run, especially if it's a solo home run, it only accomplishes the same thing as a bloop single that sends the guy home from third wood. It's one run on the board. But the public sees it and checks it off as a better category. It's only one of these 9 categories that we're looking at. So that's why it's funny to me that if Judge had, as we're recording this live here on September 19th, if Judge goes and slugs 3 jacks, you're changing your vote? I mean, that's what's wild. That to me leans the Judge should just win this award.
I think he will. I've seen a lot of the chatter from, we'll call baseball minds in the baseball community, start to like put some pop on the Raleigh. I've already told you that I would pick Raleigh based on my reasons, which are a little more team oriented, while acknowledging the Judge has been the best player in the sport this year. It's just curious to me to see. And if I had to predict, which of course I'm not good at,
but your argument's better than what the masses are. A lot of people in the masses are just leaning on these home runs and what he's doing as a catcher.
No, Judge is better. The numbers say Judge has been the better baseball player. I just value what the contribution to his actual team is.
Sure.
And Seattle is a playoff team, a potential division-winning team because of Raleigh. And does that put him over in some people's minds as opposed to Judge because he's on the Yankees? Kind of back to our institutional fatigue question, in talking about that. So it's just interesting. I do think Ohtani and Judge are going to win this again. I do. I think Ohtani is going to win this going away, because if you want to talk about promoting somebody, Ohtani gets promoted more than Schwarber. He hits a home run, and then you see a graphic. I mean, Major League Baseball and MLB Network love Ohtani. Yes.
I would be surprised if Ohtani – I would be surprised, honestly, for a hot take here. Okay. I would be surprised if the National League vote is close. I think Ohtani's going to win this significantly.
Oh, going away.
Yeah. I think he's going to win this going away. I do think the American League vote will be close. I do think Judge will win it. I think what Kyle Raleigh had to do, fair or not, because if you're leaning towards the value argument of the team just not as good without him, then this shouldn't really matter to you. But if you want to lean historic nature of the season, besides just being as a catcher and a switch hitter, then maybe this would matter. But I think what Raleigh had to do, and I even said this months ago, he had to surpass 60. We're not done with the year yet. So maybe if he clips off home runs, again, we're not done. If he can get over 60, certainly if he breaks the American League home run record, which would be over Judge, if he gets into the 63, 64, then George, the reason why I think people maybe would lean on him there, and I would maybe even be able to be convinced, even though I want to vote Judge right now, because in that scenario, if he gets into that 63, 64 home runs, he's a catcher. And you're basically arguing that he would potentially, I mean, then at that point, there is nobody ahead of him in the history of the game that has not been pretty much either assumed or factually proven to have taken steroids that has ever hit more in a year. Obviously, no catcher would be there, and catchers don't play as often as a position player. So, separate from steroids, if he gets 64 plus, you could argue that if he simply wasn't a catcher, he would break Bonds' record, because he has more wear and tear in his body than an outfielder. And at that point, Bonds in left field would just, okay, if it doesn't come right to me, you go get it in center field. He pretty much was he was pretty much, and I'm a Bonds guy, but George, to be real, he was doing designated hitter stuff before the rule was in place.
Yes.
He was a great defensive player in the 90s with 8 Gold Gloves. But when he started juicing and getting into the 2000s, he did not give a damn what his defensive ranking was or where any of that would say.
Yes.
So, and I think if there was a DH, he probably would have been a DH and would have probably hit 85 home runs at that point. But you could then bump Raleigh and say, here's what he would be if he wasn't a catcher. But I don't think he's going to get there is the issue. I don't think he's going to get there. So where he is allows it to be more of a debate. I would go Judge. I wouldn't care if Raleigh got it. I get the value argument. And then I do think Otani's going to run away with this. And I also will add that we're not going to debate it here, but Paul Skeens should run away with the National League Cy Young Award as well.
He is
his team sucks. His team sucks. And he doesn't get wins. But I loathe using the win stat. And he probably would have 20-win season if he was on any other team. He has had so many one-run losses or pitched well and lost. He should still get that going away.
Besides Ohtani, he is the other 5-digit favorite per sports books to win that award.
Hell, if his team was good, we get MVP votes.
Ohtani's like minus 55,000 to win the MVP, and Skeens is like minus 50,000 to win the Cy Young. So there you go.
Yeah, and I will throw it up here because we are live recording this. You may hear this archive, but Kyle Golick, Judge should win the MVP because there is no player in the American League that plays the game to his essence. He gets on base, which is kind of what I argued, highest, and gets home, most runs scored. His OPS is leading in batting average as well. I think the stats are just so far leaning Aaron Judge, which is why I think he will win it. That the only argument that makes sense for Raleigh is kind of what you were saying, that his team would just be really bad without him. The people that go on these TV shows and try to argue his stat line, which I've heard people do, they're just in a lost argument.
No, yeah, you lose the numbers argument. Your argument has to be the win the hearts and the minds.
Why?
Your argument has to be look at the Mariners.
Win the hearts and the minds.
The Mariners have been around the wild card. They haven't really been in a firm position for the wild card until this last month now. 3 wild card slots, obviously. Now Boston is kind of lagging down the wild card. But as the Mariners, who rattled off like 14 of their last 15, something like that, same way the Guardians have, the Astros have fallen down. And so now you legitimately have a battle at the top of the AL West here. You presume Seattle's going to get one of those 2 spots, whether it's the actual division title or one of the 3 wild card spots, with New York assuming the other one. Right. But if somehow, as you're coming down the line on this vote, if somehow the Mariners win the division, are there people out there who are easily, swayed by, look at this, they've come and won the division, which a lot of people thought was Houston's for a while, in the bag for a while now. So is that enough to sway your opinion, even though it's
Raleigh's
thing?
Yeah, he's doing this late in the year. He had a 2 home run game recently. Like, he's doing this late in the year to kind of propel them into maybe winning the division. I get all of that, especially if you have a guy who wins the division and maybe the other guy does not win the division, although I hate getting into team versus team. But it does also make you wonder that if Aaron Judge was healthy all year, his numbers would be so far in a way ahead that maybe this wouldn't be a debate, and maybe he would also have more home runs, which is why I asked you that if he had a home run lead. It's not like he has 25 homers. It's close. So if he would get the home run lead, which is not insane, and he certainly would have probably had it if he played all the games, then this maybe wouldn't be a debate at all. But I think Ohtani's going to mop the floor with Schwarber, and another guy from the live chat here. Schwarber strikes out too much. He strikes out too much. I mean, you want Adam Dunn to win an MVP? That's what it was in the previous generation. On base is great, but Ohtani's still giving you similar counting numbers, better batting average, doesn't strike out as much, gets on base, has more walks, and he's a freaking pitcher.
Yeah, like Ohtani and Schwarber right behind each other in strikeouts. James Wood, the Nationals slugger, leads the
Ohtani
NL
does strike out a lot too.
210. Schwarber 181. Ohtani 175. But to your point, Ohtani's striking out that much, but does more things offensively with the bat in terms of just getting on base, getting balls into play.
Yeah,
steals is a significant fact. So it's the cliche
Ohtani,
of high school player.
right.
Schwarber is what, maybe a 2-tool player if we're going to say his glove and his power.
Ohtani's a freaking 7-tool player.
More tools we ain't even heard of yet.
Yeah, I mean, George, you want a whole new category we're about to be getting into. So Ohtani will be the very first player in baseball history to hit 50 home runs, have 50 strikeouts as a pitcher, and also steal 20 bases because he has 19 right now. He's going to get one more. So give him 20. He has the most stolen bases of any of the 4 players we're mentioning. If somebody would have had you guess that, I don't know if you would have guessed that. So yeah, and I think maybe the compromise that we could give here, if you want to just say that maybe you want to go to the strikeouts and have them both just be mashers and strikeouts, and even for the people that want to eliminate what Ohtani does as a pitcher, which is insane, how about we do this? Every time Ohtani strikes out as a hitter, if he picks up a strikeout as a pitcher, it cancels it out.
I like
that. You want to do that math? That means 50 down for Schwarber.
Net. You want to do? We're putting this. If anybody takes this, it's ours first. We're copywriting it. Mike's courtesy of the Buzzsaw. It's net strikeouts. So everybody's net strikeouts are all minor numbers. If for some reason you're a hitter and you can actually strike people out from the mound in a baseball game, then it's like net turnovers, net strikeouts, new number. Ohtani leads all of baseball in net strikeouts.
He is top all time. It's him and Babe Ruth. He is ahead of Babe Ruth.
I like that.
And he has canceled everything out, and then he would be so far and away in front if that stat existed. But it might as well. And hell, maybe it'll happen. You'll probably see it someday on a graphic and be like, "Damn, I think the Howitzer and Buzzsaw show is in front of this," because that's what we're doing with Ohtani's numbers. Nobody else has done this before. That people think they're getting made up. But I think Ohtani wins it going away. I think Judge wins. It would admittedly be cool if Kyle Raleigh can win it. It would be cool if Kyle Raleigh can win it. And I'll put this out there too, even though I said I was going to vote for Aaron Judge. For any people that follow me because of Griffey, and I'm not really a Mariners fan, I'm rooting for the Mariners to go ahead and win the pennant. I'm on the Mariner train. If you want to have a team that you got to root for, that you're not a fan of that team, they should be America's team, man. What's not to like? A franchise that hasn't won a title before. You got a guy with a big dumper nickname that really was never known before, being an all-star, having an historic season, maybe the MVP. Other solid players, but you don't have a stack lineup like most of these guys that we're mentioning. No one's going to pick them. Vegas didn't think this would happen. They're not spending as much money as maybe they should, even because of the market, but certainly not to the level of these other teams. I'm down with the Mariners. I'm on the Mariner wagon, even though I would vote for Aaron Judge. Yeah. All
right. Still fun. Wild card race to sort out in the American League. We'll keep tabs on that here as the season winds down. We get into the wild card. Some people tune out with baseball. Baseball, we've talked about on this program, that the rule changes and everything that the MLB has done in the last few seasons have got me more energized in the sport. Helps that my team, the Guardians, is done pretty well in the last couple of years. But it's
runner on second base. I still can't get behind.
It's overall. Sure, but at least they're only doing it in the regular season. But
just that one. I can't get behind that one. Every other rule change has been for the better.
Robot umps next year, maybe. We'll see how that goes. So let's take a quick time. I don't want to get you started on robot umps. Let's take a quick time.
It's not out of the question with the way we've been going. Yeah.
Let's take a time out here on the Howitzer and Buzzsaw show. When we come back, we're going to discuss the latest and craziest developments in the NBA involving Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer, the Los Angeles Clippers, and
asinine topic of the year. Is this the front runner for the end of the year asinine topic of the year?
There's NBA is the king of offseason drama, and this is offseason drama of a different kind when we're talking about cap circumvention in the National Basketball Association. That is next here on the HBS.
All right. I am good whenever, though.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
That
here
was
fix my lighting.
I will throw you the overlay.
Chow, chow. Once again, shout out to Huck, who watching us here in 3 days on the video.
Oh, nice.
Who complains?
Where is he seeing the live stream? I'd like.
He watches this archived, and then he's always like, "Hey, you just stopped in the middle." I'm like, "Yes, it's live to tape." And then I had to explain it to him, so he watches the video at work. 3 days after the fact.
He's a rare video watcher. No, most of the
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he is a rare video watcher. He's a fan of the video. Shout out
most
to
audio. It's mostly for
in Virginia.
Form. I do throw up video occasionally, but
yes,
don't care about it as much. But yeah, that's. I thought maybe he was a follower of mine on X, because that's where I'm streaming this as well.
Right now. He's not a what do you call Twitter guy per se, but he always is puts the video up at work. He shows him sending pictures. So
well, we'll hear this conversation, because usually the video goes up as is from the live stream. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's why I always do the shout out. So shout out to Huck. He's watching. All right.
You ready?
Yep. Welcome back inside the Howitzer and Buzzsaw show. George the Howitzer Gerbo.
Mike the Buzzsawsty.
The National Basketball Association.
Gotta love it.
Never a shortage of asininity, and
just when it was getting into a lull. It was getting into kind of, there wasn't much NBA news in early August, and then Pablo Torre, nope, I'm gonna drop a bomb.
Shout out to Pablo, Meadowlark Media. Pablo Torre finds out.
Yeah.
So Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, if most people are familiar, we'll just do the short recap here. Basically, this green energy-ish company, Aspiration, had signed a deal to be on the Clippers jerseys and be like a presenting sponsor of the new Intuit Dome, which the Clippers just moved into. And Ballmer, an investor in this company, and basically Aspiration co-founders have been indicted, and there's legal proceedings they're going through federally for fraud and whatnot, and documents that through the bankruptcy filing and other places, and from talking to former Aspiration employees, as Pablo has done, have found that allegedly the Clippers were using Aspiration to pay Kawhi Leonard for quote unquote appearances that weren't really appearances, no show work, to circumvent the salary cap and allow him to collect money in lieu of a contract that appears.
Because you only can pay so much in terms of the cap, especially with the second apron and all those rules where there's penalties. Mm-hmm. This is giving him money that wouldn't affect any of that.
Right? Giving him money that appeared to be as a sponsorship deal, but in reality, as Pablo Torre alleges and his team alleges, that was intended to pay Kawhi with no reciprocal receipt of services and to skirt the salary cap.
And from an owner of the Clippers, not Ballmer directly, but his information has that a secondary owner is the one who sent some of the funds right to him without any requirement of service. So in a way, it comes off as a Clipper owner is paying him to work for another company, but not actually do any work.
Yes. And in the guise of Kawhi Leonard could plant trees or whatever, and the wording of the sponsorship, the wording of the contract was such that it made it that, Leonard doesn't have to, may or may not show up, very loose wording on.
Well, that's basically what his NBA contract should read, because he may or may not play basketball.
Yeah. Very loose wording on any on fulfilling any of these obligations, and that the deal would cease if Kawhi were for one reason or other no longer on the Clippers. So the latest portion now in the fourth different installment of Pablo's reporting and investigation, including after talking to Mark Clipper, the former majority owner of the Dallas Mavericks, who's no longer majority owner, but has a small ownership stake in the team after selling it to the Adelson family. Owners of the Las Vegas Sands properties, casinos, Venetian Palazzo, whatever. The Adelson family now owns the Mavericks. The latest is that
they swindled away from Mark Cuban. If you listen to him,
I like Mark Cuban. I like him too.
But if you hear him on shows, he's very public that his deal that he sold them in the agreement they have gone against and basically swindled him out of any power, which is part of the Luka trade. He is out there on Front Street that he got screwed over in that deal.
Yes,
which is hilarious. But go ahead.
all these billionaires are, incredibly shrewd people and they make good decisions until they don't. And then, I got tricked. I don't know.
I love Cuban, but it does feel like he's complaining a little bit. Like, I lost the deal. I'm mad. They swindled him. It almost is like, George, a swindler got swindled.
Yeah, exactly.
Why should we feel bad? I mean, Mark Cuban obviously made money. He's a great businessman, built up the Mavericks, but no one's going to feel bad when a shyster gets shystered. That's what happened here. That's what
exactly
happened. But yeah, he went on with Pablo.
Steve Ballmer too, which he's in theory he's a victim of what Aspiration did, or read another way he's a co-conspirator, and the House of Cards kind of came down here. So previously this was just different people named basically the argument from Cuban and other people was I'll use the biblical scripture. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. This was so-and-so over here and Steve didn't do this and blah, blah, or whatever. So now the latest development in the story from Pablo and the folks at Meadowlark is that the Clippers paid for carbon credits, which was part of what Aspiration was apparently trying to do, allegedly, or in theory trying to do, $56 million. Those payments were made between the period of April 1st and June 17th, which aligned closely with Leonard signing his deal and the due date of the first quarterly payment that was due to Kawhi Leonard from Aspiration as part of this faux endorsement deal. Leonard never fulfilled any of the duties. None of this stuff has been previously publicly reported.
Right.
So basically, in trying to make obfuscate the building of the Intuit Dome and it's going to be a LEED whatever building, and we're buying offsets and carbon credits. And if you're not to appeal to certain people here, but if you're an anti-green energy type of person, carbon credits seem like the most bogus type of thing in the world.
No, but Steve Ballmer's very green. From people that have been to that Intuit Dome,
yes,
he is very, very green. That if you are not green, you literally cannot be in there. Almost, that is how green he is.
He's very green. Except in terms of when it comes to things he's purchasing credits, when in reality, the Pablo's reporting appears to indicate that the paying of the credits, the carbon credits or carbon offsets, was instead intended to be payments that would eventually go to Kawhi Leonard. So it just, and the fun part was it doesn't, even after I've listened to all the podcasts, I encourage you to do so. They're long, but if you're interested in the kind of the intersection of sports and business and this type of stuff, it's interesting to me and plenty of other folks out there. You don't have to just be a basketball fan to understand it. And there's just so many different characters here, Mike, because you've got, and I think you're going to hit on it here, just like Kawhi Leonard himself, man goes down and he's a finals MVP back when he was a rookie. Or key part of that finals team in San Antonio, leads Toronto to perhaps what may be, I hope not, but perhaps maybe their only NBA championship ever for that franchise since its inception in the 90s, and was became beloved in what they did, and all the six and just all the vibe that those Raptors teams had in winning the title over the Warriors. But always just kind of this like goofy, aloof, hard to read, hard to kind of figure out guy, seemed kind of simple in many ways. Another key player in this whole thing is his uncle Dennis, who is kind of like his business manager. And Pablo goes into the details about they wanted, free Wingstop coupons and things. It smacks of
this might be a freaking future 30 for 30 on an uncle getting too and damn involved and ruining the whole legacy. Like this uncle is a big part of Leonard's entire career, and the uncle hasn't dribbled a basketball in the NBA at all. If you want to defend Kawhi, you're probably mad at the uncle.
Exactly. And then so add into the Clippers trying to, and back when it was a big deal to get him to commit there as opposed to the Lakers or anywhere else after he left Toronto. And you've got, the Clippers dealing out this big contract for Kawhi Leonard, which now we may be led to believe that actually wasn't a big contract, but then add into that kind of Kawhi Leonard notorious cheapness over the course of his time in the NBA. And then add into that, Mike, Kawhi Leonard, the player who seemingly takes the tack since he got that title in Toronto, seemingly taking the path of least resistance and the tack of whatever's going to get me to the end or to the solution or to the end of the game with the least amount of effort exerted by him. They're just a constant. I hate to drag the guy this way, just like a constant. I'm not saying he's not a great basketball player, but just like doesn't seem to care. Like contract Kevin Durant, dude loves basketball so much, seems to care. You could argue he cares too much at some point based on the way he goes after people on social media. The opposite of that's Kawhi Leonard, where Kawhi Leonard just like, I'm just here, kind of want some money, also kind of cheap at the same time. Don't really like talking, not that charismatic, not that personable, and yet he's an multiple-time NBA champion and has those accolades to his name. But here we are at this intersection now where Kawhi Leonard, in theory, still has plenty of basketball left in front of him. But after this, Mike likely will be so damaged that no one will even want to take a chance on that.
Yeah. See, the issue with Kawhi Leonard's legacy is there's so much that's going to be attached to it that is away from who he is as a basketball player. So before I fully get into the actual controversy and the actual scandal that's erupting now, the latest in the saga that has been Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers, because George, you mentioned them getting him and signing him when almost everybody thought he was going to the Lakers. They get him. Part of getting him is him demanding they get Paul George, who we found out they were close friends, but nationally, people talk about the national media reports on who's friends in the NBA all the time. We always knew the Carmelo, LeBron, Chris Paul, they're friends. Even the national media had no idea that Paul George and Kawhi were even friends. It was like, why does he care if Paul George is on the team? But he got Paul George there, and George, that has since led to Oklahoma City winning a championship because that was involving SGA and other pieces there. And obviously Paul George did not end up leading them to any title, nor did Kawhi. So that was how that started. But the NBA even investigated that deal. The NBA investigated, how did you get Kawhi? How did Paul George come over? How did that work? That whole thing was investigated. And then you get into this Clippers tenure where, at least with Toronto, he was a malcontent. They've since said he was, without literally putting words in their mouth, but there have been comments that he was annoying there, that he wasn't a superstar there. He didn't want to do interviews there. They were mad that he was going to leave. They knew he was going to leave all year. They're pissed on how that was handled. They didn't like Uncle Dennis. But guess what? They won an NBA championship. So that's always the end that no one's going to really care too much. Even with the Spurs. The end, Tony Parker had an interview 2 months ago that I heard him talking smack on Kawhi. He is still in his feelings of how Kawhi handled his injuries at that time. Popovich and Tony Parker accused him with the Spurs that he would dog injuries, or as you said, little hairline fracture. I'm not saying anybody who's injured should kill themselves, but you're a pro athlete. KD is gonna play hurt. He's not gonna play injured, but he's gonna play hurt. Kawhi Leonard, if you breathe at him the wrong way or sniff at him the wrong way,
I was going to say it's even a lesser bar than hurt. It's like I got an itch today.
Like, I don't know. He's out for a week. There were people that accused him of lying or faking injuries. Obviously, that's continued with the Clippers. He is the face of load management that he was even doing with the Spurs. People with the Spurs and Spurs fans accuse him of intentionally dogging that final year to get out of there. So his legacy is not just that he is a two-time NBA champion, a two-time NBA Finals MVP, one of the best two-way players in basketball over the last 20 years, if not all time. But also that he is the face of load management, that he doesn't really play if he doesn't have to. George, the Clippers were in the first conference finals in franchise history. And this is one of the big time past HBS debates because I was kind of rooting for the Clippers. You were rooting for the Suns. And the Suns won that series, but Kawhi Leonard didn't play at all. Didn't play at all. And Paul George did his damnedest to lead them to 6 games, had some big games in there. It felt like that whole time that if Kawhi was there, maybe they go to the NBA Finals. Maybe they win that series. Chris Paul missed some games, but Kawhi played 0. The best player played 0. And he was the best player on either team in terms of what he could do as a two-way. So the Clippers have not been able to get their money's worth. Kawhi Leonard's legacy is unfortunately not about basketball. But the weird part is he's going to be a basketball Hall of Famer, 100% when you look at the resume. But the Clippers, especially, the Spurs, at least they had the title. And then he kind of went off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And they're upset. The Raptors 1 year in, and they got a championship.
It's
the Clippers, though. He's had in a situation where he's missed games. He's played, I believe, below 40% of the games.
Mm-hmm.
He's missed most of years. He didn't help them when they had their best team and they made the conference final. Didn't help them go further. They have not received that championship to get their full money's worth. And while he is still a great player on the court and will deserve the Hall of Fame for that, off the court, they've had to deal with an investigation from the contract to he wanted to play in the freaking Olympics when he didn't even play the season, which is insane.
That was funny. Yeah, that was.
He got hurt, missed the end of the year, and then wanted to do the Olympics. And then George, there are people. I believe Brian Windhurst even reported this at the time that there is a belief that USA Basketball eventually stepped in and basically said, we don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Because it just looked ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they want to have a good relationship with the NBA. So that was kind of a scandal. And then you get here. So regardless of who is at fault, because where there's smoke, there's fire. Pablo Torre is not just going to make things up. I mean, in our world of media these days, George, people do look at what's gone on the heels of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Every day you go on Facebook, there is a made-up post about NFL or NBA players said this, positive or negative about Charlie Kirk. They're 100% of the time made up. They're made up. Yeah. No one spoke out like that. People are believing him, though. That's the media world we're living in. But Pablo Torre has had a legit career from ESPN with Dan Le Batard. Meadowlark is more of a digital media enterprise that Dan Le Batard started, but he has a legit resume. So does Pablo Torre. They're not going to risk their reputation to just make something up. Now, there are times where you can do fact-based reporting and you can find things out and uncover things. And this has also kind of been what's said as a counter, and still not have it arise to the level of severity as what they're saying on the podcast, because we have to do an investigation. Adam Silver even said that. He admitted, I'm aware of what's on the podcast. It doesn't look good. This is paraphrasing, but we have to do an investigation. You're innocent until proven guilty. It's going to be a long process, because George, pretty much every other example where somebody was investigated for cap circumvention in the NBA, and it is the strictest right now with the cap and the second apron and all of that, they have not really been found that culpable, and it's been minor offenses. They pretty much have won out. So again, no shade to Pablo Torre, but we'll see where this goes. But the other end of it is, this might be an opportunity for the Clippers to just get the hell out of the Kawhi Leonard business, because Kawhi Leonard has not been enough for them. He's not done enough for them on the court. He's not been enough for their money. And if I can get out of that and somehow save a little bit and be done with this scandal, I would do it if I'm the Clippers. But I do also want to add that where the issue arises beyond just Kawhi Leonard, George, Steve Ballmer is the face of the Clippers just as much as Kawhi Leonard. You could even argue he's the face of the Clippers, because Kawhi Leonard's not a great superstar, not in commercials, etc. With that said, Steve Ballmer, I believe he already had an interview on ESPN where he pretty much denied all this, said, if it happened, I didn't know, all that stuff. That doesn't work as well, even if it's true that he thinks it does. Say I give Steve Ballmer the benefit of the doubt and say he did not fully know what was going on, which I find incredibly hard to believe, but say that's the case. To steal a college football term, is that not lack of institutional control? And you are the leader of the control? There has to be something on Steve Ballmer, even if he did nothing wrong here himself. Pablo Torre has even kind of alluded to that the money that is going out, the checks that are going out for this company aspiration, they're not from Steve Ballmer's pocket. They're from a secondary owner, and that owner is the one throwing these checks. So Steve Ballmer can make a little bit of an argument that I didn't do it, this guy did. Now I no longer am in business with this guy. NBA can help me get rid of this man as part of ownership. I'll do it on my own because I'm really, really rich. But I still think the NBA would have to tell him, no, lack of institutional control. You're the majority owner. If that's true, it's still a little bit on you.
There's also this component you kind of mentioned about load management where his just a kind of dour, malcontent nature, I could argue permeated that locker room that's had over the course of his time there, guys like Russell Westbrook, guys like Chris Paul, guys like Paul George, where it's just kind of like they all kind of just got in this funk. And even though the team could like put it together and get some things going in terms of actually playing basketball once in a while, that the overall, health of the locker room and team cohesion wasn't good. And that can slip into, you can overcome that at some point.
Guess. I mean, Paul George says that he's a great teammate, so that's just speculation, I guess. But
Paul George is,
Podcast P. He said that Kawhi Leonard, his issue of load management did not affect the team's chemistry, and they like him and they're friends.
People say he's funny, but I think he's funny in like a weird way, not like a funny in an actual humorous way. So
no, I mean it's not even so much. What I would say even if that's true, though, that's I think why I went the other side. Like if I'm the franchise, I paid Kawhi Leonard to win me basketball games. Even if Paul George would come to me when they were together. And I say we had a private conversation and I'm Steve Ballmer and I said, Paul, what's going on with Kawhi? Are you guys upset? Is there what George is saying going on? And he would say, no, everyone's great. We don't care if he only plays half a year. I would say, I do. I care if he plays half a year. I'm paying him for the full year. I don't pay him for half a year. I care if he plays half a year. So, as much as there are times where a franchise maybe would try to load manage a player who gets hurt often and say, okay, we don't care about all the games, that is the other side of load management. Sometimes the franchise does put that on them and make them sit out. When it comes to Kawhi, he doesn't want to play.
Yeah.
I'm willing to say that. I mean, I don't know him personally. There is tons of evidence over the years, tons of interviews, tons of comments that this guy does not want to kill himself to get out there. It's just not. That's just the case. Obviously, if you have a serious injury, you can't play. And what was going on with the Spurs, maybe that was a serious injury. But every time he's on the court, if there's any contact, everyone's thinking, "Oh, he's hurt. He's missing 2 weeks." Every time. I mean, if there's ever a situation that anyone should have an NFL contract, it's Kawhi Leonard. There should be some way to help the Clippers here because it looks like he almost bamboozled them, and they have not got their money's worth. No matter how this ends.
And contrast that with a guy like Joel Embiid, who you could argue has put himself out there when he shouldn't have in order to heal better.
And gets hurt again.
And still got it out in 20, 30, 40-point performances while injured, the eye issue, the whole stinking thing that he's put himself through and has stuck himself out there for the good of his team when he probably should have rested. It's the complete opposite.
This whole last season, he probably shouldn't have played.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid probably, now granted, in terms of the Olympic thing, you could make an argument that if he would have done that, he probably shouldn't have been in the Olympics either. Neither one of them should have been in the Olympics because they both were dealing with injuries all the time. He did won the gold medal for a country that he really probably shouldn't have been representing, but he went ahead and won the gold medal. And then he had this very injury-plagued year. So yeah, you could argue that. But the thing of this, where this boils down to, George, is Kawhi Leonard's a great player on the court. But the one thing, and we gotta give credit on who said this first, and he's obviously a polarizing figure who makes more money than anybody in sports media today, and that is Stephen A. Smith. When Stephen A. Smith said years ago that Kawhi Leonard is the very worst superstar by the definition of the term superstar, he got a lot of flack from both sides. He's right. He's a great player. Kawhi Leonard is a great player. He's one of the best two-way players our game has ever seen. He is a Hall of Famer for what he's done on the court. Toronto would probably never win an NBA championship without getting him that year. And the Spurs, despite they may argue they were in the midst of their run, sure, those players were older. Kawhi was the young force. They don't win without him either. I don't believe so. He is a great, great player. When he's on the court, he is often the best overall talent or player, two-way wise for sure, on that court. The problem with Kawhi's legacy is he is way too often not on the court. He is way too often not feeling like he's giving a damn about not being on the court. When he's not on the court, you don't hear him. Paul George, when he missed time, he was out doing interviews saying, I want to get back. It doesn't mean that you could argue what's true or not, but you don't even get the mirage from Kawhi. He
Yeah.
doesn't even do anything to help you as a fan be sold that he gives a damn. And it's, you know why? He doesn't. He doesn't give a damn. That's why. He is not willing to do interviews. He is a horrible interview if you somehow are forced into doing an interview with him because he wins an award. It is just awful. He was even coming off like he was put out to go to the award ceremony. There's that video of him and Kyle Lowry in the limo.
Yeah.
After winning the championship, he was put out to go get the award ceremony and go get the trophy. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
He is just a bad superstar in a league that cares about superstars more than any other. So he stands out. If he wants to do this in Major League Baseball, George, now obviously Mike Trout's not kind of the dickish personality, but Mike Trout's not a great superstar. He doesn't do all, he's not great in interviews. He's kind of a low-key personality, but one of the best players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
No one's mad at him for that because he does try to get out there. He is hurt a lot, but he's not a jerk. He gives a damn. He's just not a charismatic Bryce Harper, Ken Griffey Jr. personality that sucks for the sport, but that's just who he is. If Kawhi Leonard wants to be this personality in Major League Baseball, maybe he'll be perceived as Mike Trout. Great player, but that's just who he is personality-wise. You do this in the NBA, it stands out more than it would in any other league. They've not got their money. He's not a great superstar. They should try to get out of this freaking deal. There got to be some culpability on Steve Ballmer no matter what. And you know what should have been the first tip-off here? Even Pablo Torre maybe should have saw this and reported on this months ago. You know what should have been the first tip-off?
Mm-hmm.
When else can you think of a time that a company, whether they're a legacy company or especially a smaller company trying to build themselves up like aspirations, would sign an endorsement deal with a future Hall of Famer and not publicize it? What in the world? If the Howitzer and Buzzsaw show signs Kawhi Leonard to an endorsement deal, I don't care what the parameters of it is.
You should be suspicious.
Well, yes, but I would be blasting this all over social media every day, every hour. They didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
They didn't do that. They let it be low key because, George, in all reality, it wasn't really an endorsement deal. They were finding a way to give him more money over the cap, and they were in some dirty business with the Clippers. That's really probably what was going on. But they got to try to get out of this because Kawhi Leonard has offered the Spurs a championship. He provided the Raptors a championship. And in turn, the franchise that gave him the most money in the Clippers, he is probably going to ruin. Mm-hmm. He's trying to ruin the Clippers franchise. He has done nothing but ruin them over the course of time. And they won in spite of him in some seasons. But it's also weird because this is a year bringing Chris Paul back. There's fanfare. They could be a good team. I mean, if you don't think the Thunder are going to do it again, people are talking about the Clippers being contender. Mm-hmm. And yet this is going to linger all season. And you know what's also ridiculous, George? This is going to linger all year. I would bet you, we should keep track. The person who is going to do the least amount of interviews discussing this is freaking Kawhi Leonard.
Leonard himself.
I bet you Ballmer, the other owners, I bet you Chris Paul is going to have to freaking talk about this because he used to have a role in the NBA Players Association. I bet you Kawhi Leonard's going to skirt this damn thing because he doesn't like talking, so the media doesn't like talking to him, and then he'll probably get hurt at some point. And when he's hurt, George, you know how the rules go. When the guy's injured, he doesn't have to do media. You think he's going to do an interview with Pablo Torre while he's hurt? You are out of your mind. He is going to go all year barely talking about this, and we'll get some resolution probably next offseason. But, I mean, I guess I'll ask you that. How do you think this is resolved? If we both think there's smoke, there got to be fire here if there's smoke. Pablo Torre normally does a great job. Kawhi Leonard is a bad superstar. This looks dirty. If we agree there, then where do you think this finalizes? Because Pablo Torre is going to pound this pavement. He's making it his full-time job to just blast this every day.
Yeah. So there will be the league will have to do something.
Sure.
The most notable case that has been pointed at noted Maryland Terrapin Joe Smith when he went to play in Minnesota in around the turn of the century. So like I think it was late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that was 2001, I think. But yeah, that was
Glenn Taylor, who was the owner, and Kevin McHale, they were found to have circumvented the salary cap. And so the T-Wolves lost 5 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
If you valued this being worse, and I think McHale,
it's a different media era. There was no Pablo Torre. There was no podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't
McHale. Essentially, I think it was like a leave of absence, but since essentially suspension without pay. So for Kevin McHale, so he didn't get paid that season and was away from the team. And the T-Wolves lost 5 first-round draft picks. If you view / value this as worse, which I think it is, then could Adam Silver go 10? And this is a franchise, 10 first-round picks. This is the franchise that he has cracked down on in helping. In one of his first actions as commissioner was helping to lead the charge
in the previous regime, but he's like this regime, but
against Donald Sterling after Donald Sterling's comments, racist comments, and that eventually led by Silver, the board of governors, forced him to sell the team. So,
but
I do think it's worse.
Schwarber, he's not. I mean, they've done investigations, but there's not been any Adam Silver versus the Clippers to that severity since Ballmer got
exactly
right. So that could lead us here where he hates the Clippers again.
I think the NBA's investigation which they've started after the first podcast episode had dropped. I think that it will lead to draft pick removals for the Clippers. I think it will lead to some sort of sanctions, not necessarily removing Ballmer as an owner, but some sort of sanctions for Ballmer.
That does seem it wouldn't.
I think Kawhi is the player I think gets to kind of skirt on this, because unless you can prove that like he directed, what's Uncle Dennis like. I think the player, though,
they
you may
suspend him games. What if you find a document like Pablo Torre may put out there in which there's a signature? Like, did he have to sign these checks? He employs Uncle Dennis. So if Uncle Dennis even did it, you could put it back on Kawhi.
Yeah.
Does there have to be culpability on Kawhi as an intelligent person in a business, or can he argue that he is just a player and he employs Uncle Dennis who then went rogue?
The second point, like unless you've got like specifically written directives that say, I want you to get the money this way to certain, unfortunately, like the way, and again, not a lawyer, but like the way I look at it, I don't actually see any culpability here for Kawhi Leonard. He received all of these benefits without doing the work and X, Y, and Z, but I think it is on Uncle Dennis /
So even if he knew, even if there's somehow video or something comes out that, because we never know.
I'm not sure you can. Yeah, I'm not sure you could unless. Yeah, I mean.
So what I'm saying is, even if it gets to the point that we now almost know that Kawhi Leonard was broached at some point with the Clippers saying, "Here's how we can give you more money over the cap." Well, it's wink, wink. We're going to do this, and Kawhi says, "Cool, I'm on board." You still think that then the blame would be on the Clippers, who are the adults in the room and should have known not to do that.
I do. I don't think.
I mean, no, it could be. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I mean, that it does seem like it's harder to put this on Kawhi. What I do think will happen, though, George. This is what I said to you off the air, that if that is correct, and we've seen this happen in sports before with great players who still had something left in the tank that kind of just get exiled. Because these owners stick together, if there is something that comes down on Ballmer, even though I'm sure the other owners will be very mad at him, there's still a fraternity there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Mark Cuban's sticking up for him, because there's just an ownership fraternity that he wants to give him benefit of the doubt here. If something comes down on the Clippers, and everybody else, and say even Steve Ballmer suspended from coming to games, they could do that where he can't show up to games, etc. And Kawhi just skates. I would imagine that whenever Kawhi Leonard's contract runs out, which is 2 seasons from now, so this coming season, then he'll be a free agent at the end of the next year. After 26, 27, then he'll be a free agent. I'd imagine the owners would then collude and say, we're done. Kawhi Leonard, you go ahead and retire. We're done with the Kawhi Leonard business. I would not be surprised if there was any collusion of nobody is going to sign him. We are done. We're not touching you. You and Uncle Dennis, go ahead. You probably don't even want to play anymore anyway. You're going to get $100 million more from the Clippers. Yeah, you might have something left in the tank for your 20 games a year. We don't want to do it. We're not going to bring you in for 20 games and give you whatever money and have this maybe look worse than it is. I would imagine that if that is the case, then we no longer see Kawhi Leonard play in the NBA, that this will be the end of the line for him. The only way that he maybe would be able to have that be a possibility to play beyond the Clippers is if he would maybe admit and apologize, because we are a forgiving country. I think the only way he probably would play beyond the Clippers is if there is something, even if he doesn't admit, but if there's some apology or something offered, but we're not going to get that because it's for Kawhi Leonard. But it would be I would be surprised if anything goes on Kawhi. He probably can just do the plausible deniability and just say Uncle Dennis controls the money. I'm an idiot. I don't talk. And this would have to be believable because he comes off like he's an idiot who doesn't talk. So Adam Silver, I guess you don't know. He's ignorant to everything. Okay. Ballmer has to know. I think it's going to be very, very hard, even though Ballmer is going out there very strict we did nothing wrong. I didn't know. None of that. There's smoke, but there's no fire. That defense is going to look ridiculous because even if he somehow didn't know, it's going to have to come on him. Lack of institutional control. He's at the top. If there was maybe a lot of draft picks get traded these days in the NBA, and you could argue that your draft picks matter a lot more in this era because of the second apron. If you're spending money and you don't win, you get over that, then you're restricted. 10 draft picks, 8 draft picks, whatever the number be, that could really kill them. Do you think that this kind of, because the Clippers franchise, despite not winning a championship and Kawhi not playing a lot of games, after the Donald Sterling scandal that led to him no longer being the owner, you could argue that the NBA, because of Steve Ballmer, was able to kind of save the Clippers. If that happened to other franchises where they lose their owner in the middle of a playoff series, that much of an embarrassing stain, they're already a horrible franchise for 40 years, one of the worst in pro sports history, it could lead to the beginning of the end, where there's no fans going, they have to relocate, maybe they're done. Because of Ballmer and all the money and now the new arena, and they have fans, even though they were in LA with the Lakers. They sell that out. So they've been saved. So 2 questions. Do you think that this second scandal, in terms of major scandals, effectively ruins them being saved from the other one, and this now makes the Clippers a 20-win team for the next 10 years again and a laughingstock and no longer even in relevant conversations, maybe having to relocate, etc. And maybe Ballmer will sell them off and this will just be the end of them being a legit contender because of this, and we trace it back to this. And then the second part of it is, do you think there's any part of Adam Silver that would say in even a private meeting or in the back of his mind, Steve, you clearly did wrong here. Clearly, we got to do something, but you saved a franchise after Donald Sterling, so I'm going to help you out a little bit. And they try to not have it be what I'm saying. And instead of 10, they go 8. And then they have something in 3 years that they can, if they do something, they can get one back. Like, do you think he gives them a lifeline because he did save them from the Donald Sterling mess?
So I agree with the second part there, that basically Silver would show Ballmer some level of grace, because again, the club of people that own sports teams is basically, you'd like to believe they're trying to do what's in the best interest of the game, but in reality, they're more often than not trying to do what's in the best interest of the club and keep the members of the club happy with the other members
for
of the
club. League in the NBA with Adam Silver, the league would look better if the result of this is as minimally damaging as possible. It's not going to look good on the league if they throw out all these 20 draft picks and it looks like he's thumbing his nose.
Because you set the precedent for the next time something like this happens, then what?
And also, it's embarrassing. I mean, the press conference after this, the question's going to be to Adam Silver if he comes out and says they intentionally circumvented the cap, is 10 draft picks, he's suspended, Kawhi Leonard's going to end his career. If he comes out and says all of that and has that tough thing that he did with Donald Sterling, there's going to be questions that people are going to say, Adam, how the hell did you not know this was going on? Adam, not only but they won a couple playoff series. Is that fair? Like, I mean, he didn't play all the games, but they did win a couple series. Like, Adam's going to have so much more to deal with. I think he would rather that minimized, that, okay, they did wrong. We got to punish, but I don't think he's going to want it to come off as even as bad as maybe he'll find out it is.
He's going to have to try to appease all sides would be my assessment.
Yeah.
On your first point, the latter part of what you said, that yes, it eliminates them from contention, but mainly because I think you will have players and or agents that would want to stay away from an organization going through that with a 10-foot pole.
Maybe.
I don't.
Ballmer got a lot of money though, but
yeah,
maybe.
I don't think it necessarily means, like you said, 20 wins. Like it's the NBA. It's weird. Like you can still win like 35 games.
It's still Los
around.
Angeles. If you can't be on the Lakers, you're in LA.
Yeah. So that is still an allure, but like I think a recoil would be sort of a cooling off period where agents and or certain players would stay away from the organization for a few seasons.
But do you think there's a lifeline that could allow them to be a contender again? Does Adam Silver try to help make that not the case? I don't think it's in his best interest to have them be a 20-win team for 10 years.
Because that's what they were for a lot of their history.
I think this is a bad franchise to be in this mess. I don't think he wants a Los Angeles Clippers franchise to just be this moribund franchise like they were under Donald Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if that is the case, I'll say this. If that is the case, George, and they have no chance to win, I wouldn't be shocked if Ballmer then sells them. He doesn't want to just own a team that has no chance. That's not in his DNA either.
He loves that stupid arena, though. He's really...
Yeah, but if they can't... I mean, I don't know. If there was no salary cap, by the way, he'd win every NBA title because he has more money than anybody.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's... Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could... in terms of bad scandals, obviously Donald Sterling was one.
Mm-hmm.
You can make an argument the only one worse than this was the referee scandal in the conference finals in 01-02 with the Kings and Lakers, because that looks like, they were affecting games, and that's been in black eye since. That wasn't as bad of a thing at the time, though.
Yeah.
But this would really be an issue if it, the other part of this is, and maybe this is my last question, George, and this has happened before. You investigate one thing, and just ask John Gruden. Somebody gets investigated, and then something else comes out, and somebody else goes down. So my question is, they're going to investigate this.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going to happen. Someone's going to get appeased. There's going to be some punishment here. Something's going to come out.
Yeah.
Do we find out that the Clippers aren't the only ones circumventing this salary?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of like, what I'm alluding to with, he needs to, he's going to, Silver will do his best to appease the members of the ownership club. Oh yeah. Is it bad in terms of institutional integrity of the league that one team is doing this? Yes. But if you were to peel back the onion of everybody, somewhere in the line there, somebody else is probably doing it. Probably not to A, this grand of a scale, B, to this sloppy of a scale, but it would be foolish to not assume that other organizations in the NBA are doing such a thing. And so for Silver, his job is going to be to balance the need of the public to still trust the brand of the NBA, that it's going to, which the brand of the NBA, which has had over the course of its history, weird assumptions about collusion and cheating and
more than other sports. Basketball,
way more than other sports.
Basketball, point shaving, even in college basketball. Yeah. Basketball is the sport that people think you can
the envelope being frozen for the Knicks for Patrick Ewing in the draft, like all of that stuff.
Right.
Michael Jordan gambling or not gambling is the reason he left the league in the 90s. We're never going to know the answer to that. So he has to do, Adam Silver has to do enough. It's the biggest challenge of his career to do enough to make sure there is an adequate level of punishment for what has happened here, but also at the same time appeasing the group of people that he works for, which is the NBA Board of Governors.
Yeah. And I'd imagine we're going to get a resolution. We're going to get some punishment. I imagine it's months and months from now. I imagine it will not affect this coming season. It may affect future ones, but I imagine it will not affect this coming season. And I also will wonder, because they almost have to, and this maybe goes how Kawhi can skate again. the NBA Players Association is going to have to defend him on this, even if it looks like there's dirt here. That's their job. He is a part of the NBA players. He is a player in the NBA. Even if he's only playing part-time, he's a player in the NBA. So I imagine they're going to have to defend him on this. But I'd imagine when you think about it, George, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't even know if I can guarantee no one else is doing this or no one else is doing this to this scale with a superstar. They were just sloppy. Because when you think about it, it probably made some sense to them to say, okay, NBA, we have the most money, but you want to have these stupid aprons and all the other things, and it's hard to get superstars. Okay, so you can't regulate on what a company can do who's not with us. If our player wants to get an endorsement deal and that company wants to hire him, you can't say they can't. That's separate. Endorsement deals are separate. It's like what NIL used to be. It's not, at the time, it wasn't from the school. If a company wants to pay somebody, they had the right to do so before the new rules of college sports. Problem is, they were funneling money from the franchise to the company, who then filed bankruptcy. And it clearly went against the salary cap. I could see the thinking there, but it was really, really sloppy. The only saving grace, the only chance that the Clippers have of skating by and having basically winning this and having this be a W for them is what Pablo Torre said. And I think I'd love to, we may never know this. He's not going to give up his source, but George, there is a question how Pablo Torre has the information he has. And why I'm saying that is the NBA has no ability, legality, jurisdiction, etc., to subpoena the banking files of a separate company that is not in their umbrella. So they can't call aspirations and say, we need to have your books for the 5 years Kawhi Leonard's been on our team to know where the money's coming from, how Kawhi's getting paid, when he's getting paid, etc. They can't do that. The only reason why some of that is out there that we know is, bankruptcy, and then Pablo Torre got it. But it looks like there's a chance for the Clippers to maybe get by off of this because they can't get as much information as they probably would need to get if it was all out in the open. Like, bankruptcy helps them in that regard, but it's not like they can fully just investigate a team doing things. They're really having to go into another company. Files could be deleted. Those people are not going to cooperate. Yeah. George, an employee of Aspirations who they try to interview for some case, what behooves them to agree to be interviewed? They don't work for the league. They may refuse to even be cooperating in this. So that could maybe help the Clippers a little bit. But you also have to put this out there when you have things like this that occur. Is there not, maybe I'll leave this, everyone can simmer and let this in their brain. Is there not a chance that somehow this, I know bankruptcy and you can get information on bankruptcy, but Pablo Torre said he's had this even before that. Is there not a chance that this was leaked to Pablo Torre?
Sure,
from
potentially
somebody,
by some people.
By somebody involved with the Clippers.
Oh, by somebody involved with the Clippers.
Or on Kawhi's side. Does Kawhi's side somehow want it? Because we're saying that he's scot-free here, likely. Are they trying to pivot off the Clippers wagon? And Kawhi is a shyster, man. He's dirty. If this comes out tomorrow, George, that Uncle Dennis leaked this, and we find that out, would you be shocked? They come out like they kind of scummy people. So
I would not be shocked.
Is somebody on Kawhi's side leaking this?
Is Uncle Dennis upset because the Wingstop coupons have run out?
Uncle Dennis, man. Yeah, most famous uncle in the NBA.
That will put a nice conspiratorial bow on this edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show. A reminder to find us wherever you get your podcast. Search Howitzer in your favorite podcast app, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and more. Just search Howitzer. Shout out, of course, as always, to Kellen B-Conley, the podcast group. Music you hear right here each and every time on the HBS, courtesy of B-universe.com and -podcast group on socials.
You can also find us on social at Howitzer Buzzsaw for the show handle, at Gerbo3, at MikeOstie11. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts, and if you can't find us, you are just not trying hard enough.
This has been another edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show, where we conquer home run and baseball debates, conspiracies, and sports radio.
Yeah, you gotta think the Kawhi Leonard drama is almost made for the HBS. We do conquer asinine scandals, but we do it one day at a time.